Mock Talk is now in session. Hi, my name is Christiana Garcia. I'm a high schooler with a bit of an unhealthy obsession with mock trial. And if you're watching this, I suspect you might share that same obsession. And you're in the right place, because today on Mock Talk, we're joined by Luke Worsham, former competitor, coach, author, and host of the Mock Trial Masterclass podcast and YouTube channel. Welcome, Mr. Worsham.
Man, it is such a thrill to be here, Christiana. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Of course, thanks for coming out here.
Absolutely. I'm excited for the conversation.
So, you've obviously worn many hats in the mock trial world, from competing to coaching, and then authoring your own book full of mock trial tips.
hmm
Can you can you tell us how you first got started in this activity?
I think actually it might have been snacks that got me started because just over 10 years ago, I was at a tiny, tiny high school in Tennessee that did not have a program and decided we wanted to start one. There was a local attorney who said we want to start a mock trial program. And a lot of us were kind of like, yeah, just what is that? Do we really? And someone said, oh, there's going to be snacks at the meeting. And that's how we got a giant turnout at the meeting. And the rest was history. I kind of caught the bug that I know you have caught, and I'm sure so many people listening have caught. I always loved sports. I actually started out my career as a sports writer, but I could never play sports. But I'm highly competitive. And so I kind of always longed for a way to exercise that competitive nature. And mock trial kind of became that. Unlike with sports, I kind of had a knack for the whole mock trial thing and competed in high school, competed in college. And now I get to coach at my alma mater where I went to high school. I coach that team, but through Mock Trial Masterclass, through my book, I get to coach students all at all levels, all across the country now, which is so much fun too. So I've got my fingers on a lot of different pies in the mock trial world, but it all I think started from food, which is often the case probably for 16-year-old boys and trying to get them interested in something.
I think the question on everyone's mind is what type of snacks were at the meeting?
I wish I could remember. If I had to guess, my answer would probably be like honey buns. I feel like those were very common and popular at those practices. Nowadays, when our parents bring snacks to practice, I'm always a sucker for goldfish. That's my go to. Like a juice box. It sounds very childish, but how could you possibly beat like apple juice, juicy juice? Let's be completely honest about it.
Whenever I compete, my go-to snack is probably a mixture of fruit snacks and almonds. My mom always is like, almonds are brain food. You need to eat it before your run. And I'm like, sure.
Funny story. I don't think I've ever told this on my channel or anywhere. When I would compete in high school, because in college you get breaks throughout the round. You do the first case in chief, then you get to take a break. Often in high school, there are no breaks. And I was always scared to death that I would have to use the bathroom in the middle of the round. So I, at competitions, would drink practically nothing because I was so afraid. And of course, by the end of the day, like my joints were sore. I was miserable, but that was the only way that I could guarantee that I would be able to get through the entirety of a round.
The things you do for mock trial, even dehydrating
Absolutely.
yourself. So you mentioned briefly about your master class, and your
hmm
saying is you want to make other people a mock trial master.
Yeah.
So today we're going to actually talk about how you can begin to master the basics of mock trial. Right now it's August, we're heading into the season of a lot of kids starting mock trial. So I just want to talk about the basics here.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited to talk about it.
So for those who may not know, how would you describe this amazing activity that is mock trial?
It's a great question, and it's an important question to ask because I remember when I first went to that meeting that I was talking about a minute ago, I was very confused. And it was never really explained well to me on the front end, and I just kind of had to figure it out. So, the simplest way that I can put it is mock trial to start off with is exactly what it sounds like. It is a mock trial. You go into a real courtroom sometimes and you pretend to try a case. That's something that I think we can all wrap our heads around, right? We all know what a trial is. We all know about going into a courtroom and getting in front of a judge and a jury and deciding, did she kill him? Did he steal from the company? Does she owe him money? Right? We can all understand that from a basic conceptual standpoint. Where you start to get into the unknown, if you've never done this before, is okay, how exactly does that work? What exactly does that look like? How do we prove to the jury that our side is right or that their side is wrong? And so, where I like to start my students every year, I'll give this talk in it's August right now, probably 3 months from now, I will be giving this exact talk to my incoming freshmen. And it is the 5 parts of a trial, because that's how you understand what is going on. It's the 5 things, the 5 steps we go through during a trial to get from beginning to end in real life, but also in mock trial. It all starts with what we call pre-trial or preliminary matters. All that means is you're getting in front of the judge, you and your co-counsel, the other attorneys on your team if you're a lawyer, and then the other team's going to do it too, and you're just getting on the same page with housekeeping matters. If you don't know what I'm talking about with housekeeping matters, all that really means is just, where does the judge want us to stand and not want us to stand? Maybe if there's some things we're going to do throughout the trial that we need to ask permission for. Maybe there's some things that the judge doesn't really care, so we can save time by not asking for those things. You'll learn the specifics of that the further you get into mock trial, but it all starts with the housekeeping stuff, and that happens in pretrial. Then you go into opening statements, typically a 5-minute speech that each side is going to give, really previewing the case for the jury. It's not your job in these statements to argue. All you're really doing is previewing and showing the jury, hey, here's the story of the case, here's what to expect today. After you get through the opening statements, the first side will call a witness to the witness stand. And what I didn't understand at first, is important to understand, is a witness doesn't necessarily only mean someone who literally witnessed a crime happen, like an eyewitness. All it means is someone who's got something relevant to tell us about the case. It could be a victim, if the victim survived whatever happened to them. It could be the defendant themselves. There's all kinds of roles, but you're going to call a first witness, and they're going to go through what's called direct examination, which is when an attorney that is friendly to their side is going to be asking them who, what, when, where, why, and how questions to try to peel a story out of them and have them explain to the jury what they know. When that witness is done with direct examination, they will immediately face a cross-examination from the other side, where the other side will get up and ask them leading questions, questions that point to an answer. Isn't it true? Didn't this happen? To try to maybe peel out the other side of the story from this witness. Once all the witnesses are done, first from the plaintiff or prosecution, which you can kind of think of as the offense, and then the defense on the other side. Once all the witnesses are done, we come back together for one last speech to the jury, which we call closing arguments. Not closing statements, closing arguments, because we're going to argue our case to the jury. We're going to wrap everything up. We're going to tie all the points back together. We're going to put a powerful bow on our case, and that's it. And I just spoke for a long time. And what's very helpful, I think, is to go watch examples of all of these things. That really helps to cement it. But that is what a mock trial is. It's a loaded question. What's a mock trial? But that's it. That's what it entails.
You just heard what it is from the mock trial master himself, so take it or leave it. So, what is typically the format for teams in these competitions? We heard that there are cross examinations and direct examinations, but how many people are typically on the bench?
Yeah, so a team typically in a round consists of 3 attorneys and 3 witnesses. That tends to be the same both in high school and in college. You'll go to some tournaments that alter that a little bit. If you compete at Empire, there's a situation where you can have 4 attorneys at council table. There's been a rise over the last 5 or so years of one-on-one competitions where it's 1 attorney and 1 witness. But your most common format, you're going to have 3 attorneys working together on one team who call 3 witnesses played by teammates of yours from your school to the witness stand.
Got it. And for anyone who's maybe watching this, who is on the edge of maybe joining their school's mock trial team,
Mm-hmm.
they're kind of like they don't really know if they should because they're not really interested in pursuing law.
Yeah,
From the coaching standpoint, what would you tell those people?
it's a great question, and I'm glad you brought this up because I'm about to start making some videos for coaches. That's something that I've been given as feedback a lot lately. Is coaches saying, "Man, I wish you'd make videos catered to us in addition to the students." And as I've been outlining the content for those videos, one of them that I'm going to make is just kind of a video talking about 3 coaching mistakes to avoid. And one coaching mistake that I'm going to talk about in that video is one that I see over and over again. Is I see coaches billing their mock trial program as come to us if you want to be a lawyer one day. And what that does is it limits your talent pool because students who don't want to be a lawyer one day check themselves out. Okay, well, you know who doesn't do that? Student government. Student government doesn't say, come be a part of student government if you want to be the president one day, right? Speech and debate clubs. They don't say, come join the speech and debate club if you want to be a lobbyist in DC one day. And so, because they don't say that things, they just get the best and the brightest students who are interested in public speaking, who are interested in argument and debate, who have big personalities and just want to shine and do something to kind of flex their academic muscles. That's who goes to those activities. And when you, as the mock trial team, say, well, we just want people who want to be lawyers, you really limit yourself. All of that to say, if you're sitting here listening and thinking, man, the whole mock trial thing kind of sounds interesting, but I don't really want to be a lawyer, great. There's so many ways to enjoy mock trial beyond being a lawyer. And let me give you this. So I have been involved in mock trial for over a decade now. I competed, like I said, I coach at my alma mater. So I'm coaching now at the same program that I competed in years ago. We have yet to have a single graduate, and this is a program that has won multiple state titles, a handful of top 5 state finishes, and a national champion. Not one person from the program has ever been to law school. Not one.
What I've even noticed is like top schools like UCLA, one of their standout competitors who's a witness right now, Emma Rose. She's not even like interested in pursuing law. And I'm saying this example because she's actually an actor.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of you can like pull from different talent pools. And I think you said it beautifully at the start of this podcast. You were interested in sports and you started mock trial because obviously the snacks, but also because you had that competitive like edge.
There are a lot of schools, high schools and colleges, who have strong theater departments that pull their best mock trial students, competitors, straight out of those theater departments. Now, as you and I have probably, as I certainly have, and I'm sure you have, we've seen mock trial students who, with an acting background, kind of overdo it a little bit, and you kind of have to scale back some, right? It's not theater. But those skills, right? Getting up in front of a crowd and not being nervous, having the confidence to put on a performance, those skills translate great into mock trial. And beyond that, too, I think we sometimes focus way too much on the utility of it. What am I getting out of mock trial? And we say, well, it's going to look great on your resume. Colleges are going to love it. It's going to sharpen this skill and it's going to make you better. It's just fun. You get to compete with your friends. That's what I loved about it. I didn't come home from mock trial practice and go, I loved that practice because I improved at my ability to. No, I had fun because I like competing and getting better with my friends. Like that was all it came down to.
Hey mockers, we're doing our first mock talk giveaway with Luke Worsham's new book, Mock Trial Masterclass. For your chance to win a copy, all you have to do is head over to the Instagram page of Mock Talk. Follow us, like, comment, and tag a friend when you comment. This giveaway is open to all U.S. residents, and we'll be selecting a winner at random by September 15th. This book is an excellent guide to becoming a mock trial master in every way, shape, or form. And if you want your chance, go head over and enter the giveaway now. And with that, we're back to the episode.
Switching gears a little bit to talk about more so the purpose behind the trial. So you broke down the 5 stages of a trial and you talked a little bit about statements. Could you walk us through what the purpose of an opening statement is?
Yeah, it's a great question because opening statement is the most important part of a trial. 80% of the time, the team that scores higher in opening statement winds up winning the round. It's a huge indicator of team success, and you got to get it right. So there's a few things that have to happen in your opening statement. The first thing that has to happen is you have to tell the story of the case. Every case has a story, whether it's something really exciting like a murder or whether it's something not so exciting like a contract dispute. Every case has a story. Someone did something or is being accused of doing something or is being accused of not having done something that they were supposed to do. Your job is to get up and tell the story. If you're the prosecution or the plaintiff, remember kind of the offense, your job is to get up and tell the jury, hey, here's what this guy or this gal on the other side did or didn't do that they were supposed to have done. And then on the defense, your job is to get up and saying, well, all that's good and fair, but let me tell you the story of what really happened, or let me tell you the story of what they're missing. You have to get up and tell the story, and you have to do it quick. This is a mistake I see a lot of teams make is they get up and they give these flowery opening statements. And remember, you got 5 minutes for these things, and we get to minute 3, and I'm still sitting there going, yeah, but what happened? And we're in minute 3 and 30 seconds, and they finally go, and then she was killed. And I'm like, why didn't we get that 20 seconds into this speech, right? So you got to tell the story of the case. That's the first thing you have to do. The second thing that you have to do is you have to preview the trial. This looks like previewing the trial through the law that you're going to deal with. You know, every case in mock trial and in real life, there's some kind of law surrounding it. You know, we don't just say, well, was this person negligent? What do you think? No, we have a very specific standard, and the law is going to say, hey, you got to check these 4 boxes according to the law for someone to have been negligent. So it's your job as the attorney in that opening statement to, without getting too into the weeds, right? We're not looking for a legal seminar, but you got to explain to the jury in a way that they can grasp it. What is the law we're dealing with? You also are previewing the case through the witnesses you expect to hear from. You're telling the jury, hey, you're going to hear from this person. They're probably going to talk about this, and then you're going to hear from this person. What's very helpful during that part of the trial is avoid using proper names, because think about this. If you're in the jury and you're sitting there and you hear, and next you're going to hear from Billy Joe Boshears. And Billy Joe Boshears, I'm not going to remember that in 20 seconds, which, by the way, that's a real witness name that we've had before.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, instead I prefer to use titles. You know, today you're going to hear from an expert in pharmacology. They're going to talk to you about the way this medicine works. Today you're going to hear from the defendant's best friend, as opposed to today you're going to hear from Martha Sue. Because, again, I'm not going to remember that.
Today you'll hear from a hardware store worker who will show you a receipt.
So you start your opening statement, tell me the story of the case. Next, we're going to preview the trial through what we expect the law to be and what we expect the witnesses to be. And then finally, you got to give the jury a call to action. And this is very, very simple. You're just going to end your opening statement and say, hey, at the end of today's trial, we're going to ask that you find the defendant guilty. We're going to ask that you find the defendant not liable. You know, whatever the call to action needs to be for that case.
To close the case, they cut the facts. Members of the jury, don't be fooled. Because throughout this entire trial, you're going to find that anyone could have committed this crime. Their description isn't specific. Their forensics are biased, and they were running out of time. And that's why, at the end of today's trial, my co-counsel, Miss Audrey Ma, will speak to you again and ask you to reach the only just verdict. Find her not guilty.
So once an attorney gives an opening statement, you mentioned that they would typically flow into a direct examination.
Mm-hmm.
What's the purpose behind having a direct examination in trial?
You know, at risk of sounding repetitive, it's to tell a story. You know, that's what makes good mock trial is telling a story. I think where competitors can get themselves into trouble is when they get up and they say, okay, there are these 10 facts that I want to come out through this witness. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good, I'm done. Okay, what really needs to happen is we need to organize those facts in a compelling way, like we would if we were telling a story. Right? You learn in the 4th grade when you're starting to read your first novels in school, beginning, middle, end. Right? Who's the main character? What are they trying to accomplish? What do they want? You start to learn those elements, but yet, for whatever reason, we just lose that sometimes with mock trial. You got to keep that. And so a good direct examination is going to start at the beginning, right? Like Sound of Music, start at the very beginning, a very good place to start.
Very good place to start.
You don't get up in your direct examination of the car wreck victim, and your first question is, so how'd you feel after the wreck? Whoa, I'm lost immediately if I'm a jury member, because I'm thinking, whoa, there was a wreck. Was this person hurt? I have so many questions immediately. So we got to start at the very beginning of the story. And I'm literally mean the very beginning. I mean, the first question we're going to ask is, what's your name? Right? What do you do for a living? Where do you live? Have you always lived there? Okay, well, did this defendant over there, do you know him? How do you know this defendant? Well, he hit me with his car. Interesting. Let's talk a little bit about that. What was the day when that happened? It was April 12th. Let's back up a little bit. Morning of April 12th. Where were you? I was at home. What were you about to do? I was going to go to work, right? Do you see how constantly, even in that little example, I'm always saying, how can we start at the beginning and flow through to the end? That's what a good direct examination does, is it tells a compelling story through the witness. And like I mentioned earlier, you're going to want to do that through mainly who, what, when, where, why, and how questions. Those are what we would call an open-ended question that allows the witness to kind of be the star of the show and explain their answers without you kind of leading them to it. Every now and then in direct, there's a time and a place for asking a yes or no, more pointed question, but you're going to want to stick to the who, what, when, where, why, and how variety for the most part.
We're talking about storytelling, and I want to pick up with that analogy. So there's different characters in stories, obviously, similar to how there's different character or witnesses in trial. Could you break down what those different witnesses kind of look like? Obviously we have like eyewitnesses, but what are the different types of ones we could see?
Yeah, it's a very important question because when you're developing your strategy for witnesses, a lot of that depends on what kind of witness you're dealing with. And there tend to be three main types. The first type, I call them the MCs, or the main characters. Those are the center of attention spotlight witnesses that the entire story of the case rests and fall on. This is going to be your victims, again, in a case where the victim has lived. Obviously, the victim in a murder case, not going to be testifying. But in anything else, you want to hear from the victim. It's going to be your defendant, right? They're one of the stars of this show. They're one of the main characters in this story. If we're dealing with a lawsuit and someone is coming to court suing someone else, that person is what we would refer to as the plaintiff. That person's going to be a main character. They're the person creating the action that we're here to solve today, right? So that's your first variety of witnesses, is these MCs, these main characters. They're typically going to be more emotional, at least where it makes sense. They're not going to be funny. It's usually a mistake to try to make an MC have a humorous side to them. I've seen it done. It's usually kind of tacky. They're going to be more serious, but they're going to be very compelling, and they're going to have a lot of emotional depth. We're going to get to see them happy. We're going to get to see them sad because this thing happened to them. Second type of witness you're dealing with is an expert witness. This is a witness who has usually some kind of scientific background, like a doctor or an engineer, who's going to come in and look at a specific part of the case, study it, develop an opinion based on their background and their expertise, and then deliver that opinion to the jury and explain it. The biggest key for this type of witness is to what I call put the cookies on the bottom shelf. You know, a lot of expert witnesses, like I said, are scientists, so they're dealing with big words. For example, I remember we had a GI doctor, a gastroenterologist, and he performed a procedure on one of the characters in this case, which was called an esophagogastroduodenoscopy. I still remember that word. Now,
Say that 10 times fast.
exactly. What we did not do with that witness is have him say, and then I performed that procedure, and then the attorney go, okay, well, let's move on. No, he said, I performed an esophagogastroduodenoscopy, and the attorney said, whoa, let's stop there. You got to explain to us what that means. And he said, sure, you know, it's a big word, but it's really not that complicated. Here's all it is, right? Bringing the cookies down on the bottom shelf where everyone can reach them. That's what a good expert witness is going to do. The third and final type of witness is going to be what you would call your character witnesses. Usually they are eyewitnesses, like you said a second ago. My theory with character witnesses is that you want to make them funny. Sometimes mock trial can get way too serious. You've got these volunteer judges who have been listening to this case for a long time, and they want a little bit of relief. Where this goes wrong a lot of times is two. One, you just write jokes that aren't very funny. I remember scrimmaging a team in college that had their witness tell a domestic violence joke. Probably don't want to go there, would not advise. So that's problem number one, is just writing bad jokes or inappropriate jokes in that case. But the other problem that you get into is you make these witnesses annoying, right? If there's one word, and I learned this from Adam Chase, who's an alum of Yale University, if there's one word you want to describe a character witness at the end of the day, it's lovable. And far too often that word becomes annoying. So you want to craft jokes, you want to write jokes, humor into the character. You want to make a funny character as opposed to a character who says funny things. That's an important distinction too, and I could talk all day about the difference there. But the key thing to remember with these guys is just make them lovable. When they sit down, the jury should be left wanting more, not wishing they had sat down earlier. An optional kind of fourth type of witness is law enforcement. They kind of sit somewhere between main character and expert witness. But those are kind of the three types that I tend to recognize.
As my team's designated character witness, I really love that like one word, lovable.
If you're going through the creation of a character witness from that lens, if we want to make a lovable character, it gets a lot easier, and it just really refines your ability to create something very, very exciting that's going to score well.
So when you're writing these direct examinations of a witness, for people who may not know, what do you base it off of? Can you just like create whatever you want, or are you like kind of bounded to certain things?
Well, these days it depends on where you go to school, whether you can create it from whatever you want. Now, that's throwing a little bit of shade at some things that happen in the mock trial world. No, that's not what's supposed to happen. So here's how it works. In your case packet that you get from the people who run whatever tournament you're competing as a part of, each witness will have their own witness statement. Sometimes this is in the form of an affidavit where the witness has sat down under oath, which means they've sworn to tell the truth under penalty of going to jail if they don't. And they just kind of write down everything they know about the case. That's probably the most common. You'll also sometimes see depositions, which is just the same sort of thing, except instead of sitting down and writing everything they know, it's in the form of questions and answers. Occasionally from an expert, you'll just have a report that they have prepared, but it's also under oath. But it's from that witness statement, which can apply to all of those things, affidavits, reports, depositions. That witness statement is your source of truth. It's your ultimate source of knowledge about this witness, about what they know, what they don't know, what they believe to be true, what they believe to be false. And it's from this that you're crafting these questions from, that you're setting up these examinations from.
Let's talk about the other examination we haven't really touched on, cross-examination.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between cross and direct?
Well, the biggest difference between cross and direct is that in a mock trial context or direct examination, you're dealing with an attorney who is friendly to your side, right? You're dealing with your teammate who is asking you these open-ended questions and allowing you as the witness to really be the star of the show. Remember, the attorney's just asking who, what, when, where, why, and how. It's the witness's job to explain. It's the witness's job to steal the jury's attention and kind of bring them over to your side of the case. Cross-examination is adversarial. You are dealing with an attorney who is not on your team, who's actually your opponent. And not only that, and not only will they be asking questions, of course, that hurt your case as opposed to questions that help your case, they're not going to be asking open-ended questions, at least if they're well coached. They're going to be asking close-ended or leading questions, questions that suggest an answer. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to end every question across with, isn't that true or isn't that correct? Oftentimes, you can completely cut that phrase and your question has the exact same effect. But you're going to be asking these questions that suggest an answer. So whereas in direct examination, the question might be, where did you go to high school? In cross-examination, the question is going to be, you went to North County High School. Right? It's the attorney's job to pull that information out in such a way where all the witness has to do is answer yes or no. I've heard it said that a good cross-examination is really just a conversation between the attorney and the jury that occasionally gets interrupted by a yes or a no from the witness. And I really do think when it's done the right way, that is how it comes out.
So, what are the things to set up for that nice 10 moment on cross examination you think the students who are watching this
Mhm.
could learn from?
Yeah, let me start by saying what it's not, because that's a trap I see a lot of kids fall into. You don't want to ask a home run question, a swing for the fences moment. And what I mean by that is, all right, play a game with me here, Christiana. I'm going to cross you. Just assume the answer to all these questions is yes, okay?
Okay.
Now, you're actually the defendant's best friend.
Yes,
You two went on vacation together just a month ago.
that's absolutely right. We went to the Bahamas.
You go to dinner once a week,
Correct.
grew up together,
Yeah, we did.
and anytime you can, you two hang out together.
That's my best friend. You're right.
Okay, Christiana, tell me, what quality have I just revealed about you as a witness?
And I'm biased.
Correct, right? And everybody listening got that. But you know what I didn't ask at the end? I didn't ask all those questions and then go, so you're biased, aren't you? Right? That's what we don't want. Because you, as the listener, heard that I proved that this fictional witness we just made up is biased. Christiana knew answering these questions that I was pointing out the fact that she was biased. Your jury will pick up on that. You don't need to go that extra mile. And when you do, you give the witness like one last chance to wiggle out of it. And also, what witness is just going to go, you know what? Now that you mention it, I am biased. That is right. Right? No one's going to do that. So don't ask those home run questions. That's not where your score 10 moment comes from. Your score 10 moment really comes from your control of the witness and your control of the narrative. I don't even like to think of it in the sense of like, there's one moment that everybody's going to be like, that was a 10 cross, so we're going to snap our fingers, right? It's the whole thing. It's, are you telling a good story? Are your questions organized in a compelling way? Or am I kind of lost and confused while you're going in the directions that you're going? Are you letting the witness walk all over you, or are you respectfully controlling the witness and making sure they don't wander too far outside of the bounds of the question that you asked? Those are the things that are going to set you apart on cross more than anything else.
Oftentimes, we kind of see the big home run question out like in movies.
However, had time to hide the gun, didn't you, Chutney? After you shot your father.
So, like in movies like Legally Blonde or another very iconic law movie, My Cousin Vinny, a lot of the lawyers kind of use their body language to persuade the jury. Would
Yeah.
you say that aspect is still in place for mock trial?
I think it's a non-negotiable if you want to succeed in mock trial. I think it is vitally important to use your body language to persuade, use your movement to persuade. You know, I teach my kids relentlessly about the need for intentional movement, for purposeful movement. We don't just, wander around the courtroom. We don't pace around. I've seen that done. It's very distracting. It doesn't actually work for what it's supposed to work for. What we want is purposeful movement, and our body language has a lot to do with that. You know, if we're going to step to one place for one specific reason and then step to another place for another specific reason. And I'm being very vague because there are a lot of different directions you can go with that, and you'll have to work with your coach for your specific situation. But all this to say, yeah, movement, body language are huge parts of selling your point as mock trial students. There have been times I remember when I would compete and I would ask a question on cross, and the witness would give a horrible answer, and I would look to the jury with a facial expression as if to say, really? Like, are we really going to buy that? I didn't say it out loud, but my facial expression said everything, and they knew it.
You mentioned selling kind of your case. For someone who's going to join mock trial, what are some other aspects they could get used to when it comes to performance?
I think the big thing is just confidence. I preach it over and over and over again. I've gotten to where I can see it from a mile away when you're not confident. I would rather you go all in and mess up than be perfect and be sheepish for the entirety of a round. That's the biggest thing you're going to have to learn. And one thing I tell my students too is sometimes you just have to fake it. Because they come in and they say, well, I'll be confident once I learn everything. And, once I'm a junior and I've done it for 3 years. No, it's like, no, I need you to be confident right now. I don't need you to know everything right now. I need you to be confident. If you don't know something, be be so confidently wrong, right? Not in an arrogant way, not in an off-putting way, but I can't tell you the number of times over the years when I would compete and I would get asked something and wouldn't know the answer, but you sure thought I did, or I'd be going through an objection that I knew in the back of my head, I've already lost this and I got no idea what to say next. But with the tone of my voice and the way I presented myself, you would have thought I was large and in charge and had the whole thing under control. You just got to fake it sometimes, and that's okay. It's okay to do. If you go to a concert and I love Billy Joel. I would way rather go to a Billy Joel concert and him be the piano man, like with some swag and lean back on his bench and miss a note every now and then, than him give a completely musically perfect performance but be boring and uninteresting. Right? And everyone would agree with me on that. And that's what you got to do in mock trial too.
I agree. Like there has been so many moments in round where like I'll say something and sometimes the judge corrects me. They're like, Miss Garcia, that stipulation isn't in the case packet, let's say. And I'm just like, yes, Your Honor. Like smile on my face, just like
Oh, yeah.
water off a duck's back. It's fine.
For sure. Yeah, the worst thing you can do too is like look defeated in one of those moments. It's like with an expert witness, for example. Let's say we have a police officer on the witness stand and they get asked, and you didn't take fingerprint samples. They have two options. They can say, no, but it wasn't necessary, which that almost makes it sound like they're trying to hide something. Or they can say, no, that's not part of our standard procedure. Right, that second one makes the attorney sound dumb. Like, why would you even ask that? Of course we're not doing that. The first way, it's like, no, I guess not. Right? It's a huge difference, just your tone and your ability to exude confidence.
Speaking of confidence, I want to test how confident you are in your emoji skills.
Okay.
So we're gonna play a game, and it's called the Mock Trial Emoji Challenge.
I'm very excited.
Okay, so on a scale from 1 to 10, how familiar are you really with like emojis? Do you use it all the time or not really?
I use emojis because I think sometimes over text, your tone of voice doesn't really come across. So sometimes you have to use the emoji so the other person like knows you're being sarcastic as opposed to serious.
I agree. Sometimes, yeah, I use emojis. I think maybe this is just like the Gen Z in me, the younger generation, but like I feel like I use emojis too much.
Yeah, I'm definitely not a too much guy. Like I'm very tempered with my emoji use, but I do use them and I am familiar with the gamut of emojis.
Great. So, how this game will kind of work is there'll be a few emojis displayed on screen, and they're basically your job is to decode the legal phrase.
Okay.
It could either be from objections to either iconic quotes from legal movies.
Okay. I'm not the biggest movie buff, so I may struggle with that, but I'll probably get the mock trial ones. I would at least like to think I'll get the mock trial ones.
All right, well, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. First one.
Hearsay.
Wow, in record time. That was very, very fast. Okay, let's go to our next one.
Let's say cross-examination.
Bingo. Okay, you are amazing at this. I think you're gonna like just go through this game super quickly. Let's see.
Man. I see a tear. I see like a tissue or Kleenex, and then someone on the witness stand. I don't know. Is this one of the movie quotes?
No, not a movie quote. I'll give you a
Okay.
hint. We talked about this a little bit earlier, I guess, in the interview, where like sometimes people can go too over the top with the performance.
Is this like a main character or a character witness?
It's a witness.
The victim?
Okay. One more chance. Another word for victim.
The defendant? Or no, it wouldn't be the defendant. The defendant's not a victim. The defendant did it. I don't know. What is it? Okay, sympathetic witness.
Sympathetic witness.
Got it.
Yeah. Very, very close. Let's see if you'll get the majority.
Okay. Timeline.
Close. So you have the timeline part right.
Okay.
If something like you're showing to the jury that's not in the case packet, it would be like another word for something you'd show the jury.
Like a demo, a timeline demo.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Very
Timeline
good.
demonstrative. Yeah.
You can't handle the truth?
Want the truth? You can't handle the truth.
Very good. That was one I can do.
I mean, we can handle the truth now. We know our mock trial lore and legal lore. And you won. Nice job.
Very good. That was fun.
You got through some of those really, really quickly. Nice job.
I've been around these streets for a little bit.
So, moving on to our next segment, I kind of want to talk about the two T's that mock trial really boils down to: theory and theme.
Mm-hmm.
Can you walk us through what it means for a case to have like a theory?
Mm-hmm. Well, your theory is basically just it's your theory. It's, what you think happened based on the facts you're given. When you read a mock trial case, it's not just one giant narrative account of this happened and that happened and that happened. You're really just given this series of facts through the form of the witness statements that I was talking about earlier. And what you do is, as the plaintiff or prosecution and then as the defense, is you look at all the information available to you and you go, okay, based on these facts, what is our theory for what happened? Right? If we're the prosecution, we're prosecuting someone for theft. What is our theory for the literal what happened in this case and how they did it and how they got off with it and why they're going to be proven guilty today? If we're the defense, what's our theory for why he or she didn't do it? Do we have an alibi that we're going to lean into? Is there a specific theory as to, well, actually it was someone else and we can pin it on that someone else, and that's going to be our theory. Your theory is just really the way that you understand and approach the case from a strategic standpoint, from a strategy standpoint.
Why is it important to have a theory?
It's important to have a theory because it gives you direction. You can't, in real life, it's a little bit different, but in mock trial, it tends to be best to pick like one direction to go in terms of how you're explaining the case to the jury. Because it can get confusing very quickly when you only have 2 hours to explain all of these details if you're going in all of these different directions. If you can hone in on one certain specific direction, you're going to have a lot more success.
Something else we have in mock trial that beginners might not really be aware of is a theme.
Mm-hmm.
When someone says a theme, what are they referring to?
Yeah, themes are vitally important in mock trial. And what they are is it's basically once you develop your theory, you move on to developing a theme, which is more or less a catchy, memorable way to state your theory, to state the heart of your case. And the way you do that, because it's really like a slogan, you think of Papa John's, better ingredients, better pizza, Papa John's. Walmart, everyday low prices, right? All these great companies that we use all the time and go to all the time, they have these slogans that we remember because they're memorable and they also relate to what it is that company does. Themes are basically the same thing. So here's how you make a good theme. There's 2 steps. First thing you're going to do is figure out what is the heart of your case. And really that comes down to your theory. It's what is our main selling point to the jury? If I had to fill in the blank, this is a case about blank. What are we filling in that blank with? That's where a great theme must start. Don't get clever yet, right? We're not trying to be memorable yet. It's just literally, what is this case about? Let's hone in on that. Once we have done that, then we can make it memorable. You can't get it backward, though. And that's where a lot of teams get into trouble is they want to create this clever, catchy theme, and they're like, oh, we got this great rhyme. And it's like, yeah, but does it really get to the heart of your case? Does it actually accomplish the thing you're trying to accomplish? And a lot of times, if you don't start where you're supposed to start, the answer to that question is no. So you have to start with what is the heart of your case. Once you're to that point, then you can start to try to make that memorable. And there are a lot of ways to do that. You know, one of the simplest is you can use a quote from the case. I remember one time we had a case where the defendant was quoted, and we had a voicemail where she called someone and said, "Only one of us will survive that wedding." And spoiler alert, someone died at the wedding. We were accusing this person of killing them. And so I got up in my opening statement, and I looked at the jury, and I said, "Members of the jury, this defendant made a promise. Only one of us will survive that wedding." And what you're going to see today, through the proof, through the fact, is that that defendant made sure that promise came true. Right? That's a great way to do it. Rhymes are great as long as it's not too cheesy or corny. I love the rule of three. You know, if we can have kind of a symmetry of, you know, members of the jury, this is the case about what the defendant said, what the defendant did, and what the defendant didn't do. You know, that symmetry, that parallelism that goes throughout. There are endless ways to make it memorable, but it's kind of like you know it when you see it. You know a theme is not memorable when it's just kind of not well thought out. You know, it's not really a slogan. It's just kind of a sentence for, you know, for more or less explanation there. But that's what a theme is all about. It's hard, but it's very important to do.
In all your years of doing this activity, has there been like a specific theme that has really stuck out that's like your favorite one?
100%. And it comes to mind immediately. And if you ask the two attorneys that I coach with, they would give you the same answer. I guarantee it. So this was 2018, my senior year of high school. It was a negligence case where a city was being sued for not having enough emergency personnel at this giant event. Someone got injured, the emergency personnel didn't get to them in time, bad things happened. And the city manager, his kind of response to all of this was, well, you know, we could have, but we had these priorities, and well, we were really focused on this, and, you know, we just, you know. And so our theme was they had more important things to do. And it was so sassy and it was so repeatable that when I would get up in closing argument, it was so easy to just weave it in throughout the speech, and every time it was just to tremendous effect because I could say, members of the jury, they had this huge event with 3,000 people, and there was this violent protest group that they knew were going to be there that had a history of making trouble and all these things, but they had more important things to do. Oh, it was just so rich. I don't know that you could ever top that. It was so good. Another one I can think of real quick that I love. Neither one of these I came up with, by the way. I've come up with good themes, but none of them have topped these. The other one was 2 years ago. There was a guy being sued. He operated a party truck like you would see in downtown Nashville, like with a swimming pool on it and girls in swimsuits and a lot of alcohol and parties happening. And he operated it like completely unsafely, and someone got hurt. And as you searched into this guy's history, he like repeatedly ignored safety protocols because he just wanted to keep this business running. Oh, we got to keep the party running. And so our theme was he didn't want to let a little safety get in the way of a good party. And it was so sassy, you know, it was so good. But every time we get up an opening statement, he should have done this, he should have done that. But he didn't want a little safety to get in the way of a good party.
What's standing out to me about those themes are they're nothing like too flashy, but they still get the job done because you can repeat them so much. And that's something I kind of preach to my teammates, like theme integration is really key.
Yeah, you know the phrase try hard, right? Someone who's walking through the halls of the school and they got their backpack on one shoulder and they're looking all cool and swaggy, and you're like, dude, that guy's a try hard. Like, you don't want your theme to be the equivalent of that, like you just pointed out. It should be very simple like that, but also just full of snark and sass if you can get it that way. And like I said, in both of those cases, it was memorable, but it also got to the heart of our case, and that's why they worked so well.
Yeah, one of my favorite themes I came up with was last year's Yale case my high school team competed with. And it was like the zip lining case, and it was a negligent civil case. And basically the plaintiff was like, oh, this break on the zip line was like broken and busted, and that's why this person got injured. And then our defense theory was she was too buzzed to break. The break was there. The defendant was, or the plaintiff was just too drunk to use it. That was probably my favorite theme.
Themes catch my attention like just about nothing else. I'm thinking of several great memories I have of awesome themes. They really can make or break you. They're so important to get right.
So, moving on into our next portion, I want to talk about some advice you would maybe give to people who are starting off in mock trial.
Mm-hmm.
So, for anyone who's thinking of auditioning for their school's team, what is some advice you'd give them?
I would give you two pieces of advice. Number one is what I talked about earlier: project confidence when you go into your tryout. I don't know what format your tryout's going to be in. There are a lot of different ways that coaches go about doing it, but whatever the way is, project confidence. Even if you feel like, oh, I don't know what's going on, you probably don't, right? You're new to this, and that's okay. Be confident. Give it everything you have. Leave it all out there on the field. Second thing is preparation. No coach is expecting someone who tries out for a mock trial team to come in and look like a seasoned veteran. So, no, you're not going to go in and know the rules of evidence or know how to handle objections really well. No one is expecting you to. But if you're asked to go in and read for the part of a witness and you don't know the details about that witness, we're going to have a problem on our hands. Whereas if you come in and you say, hey, I read through this witness, and he's from Jersey, so I actually been working on developing an accent. I don't know if it's any good, but I can try it with the accent, without the accent. Right. My mind as the coach goes, hey, the accent may stink. I don't care. You put in the effort to do this. That shows me you're going to care once the season rolls around. That's what I'm looking for so often in these tryouts is, one, are people confident? And two, can I tell that they care? Did they put any effort at all into preparing this? So that would be my encouragement, is to be confident and then prepare. Don't overdo it and don't ask too much of yourself too soon, but do something, right?
Often, when you get into the mock trial world, you kind of feel like you're thrown in the deep end. So, eventually, if newer competitors start competing, and they may feel like they don't really understand what's happening, and they kind of feel like they want to quit. From the coaching perspective, what would you tell those people just to lift their spirits?
I would tell them, first of all, lean into your coaches. Your coaches want to help you. They want to teach you. If they don't, you have a bad coach. And I think most mock trial coaches, even the ones who might not know the most from a strategic standpoint, they want to help. Especially if they're lawyers, they know what's going on here. They know what this stuff is. So lean into your coaches. But also, that's why I created the whole Mock Trial Masterclass YouTube channel. That's why I wrote my book, is because there are a lot of those students. I talk to them just about every day during the season, students who, send me emails or they comment on a YouTube video and they say, I wouldn't have known where else to go if it wasn't for this. So lean into the resources that are out there. Because when I was competing, this stuff didn't exist. There was no mock talk. There was no mock trial masterclass. Now it's out there. So if you go to a practice and you're asked to do a cross and you feel kind of lost, get on YouTube and look up cross-examination. You're going to see 5 videos from me pop up immediately, and all of them, I promise, are going to be very easy to understand and are going to help you know exactly what you're confused about, exactly what you need to know. So take some initiative is also part of this too. My best students are not just the ones who come to practice on time and do what we ask of them. It's the ones who outside of the classroom, outside of practice, are also leaning in or also trying to get better. And there's so many resources out there to help you do that these days.
I want to dive in a little bit into the resource you mentioned, your book.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, really cool that you wrote this book about kind of like the basics of mock trial. Tell us, what was your inspiration behind writing this book?
My inspiration was I got tired of going to tournaments and winning because the other team had no idea what was going on, right?
That's
I,
very real.
I want to win because we were better prepared, because we worked harder, not because we had access to some knowledge base that the other team didn't have access to, right? That just didn't feel fair to me. And so now, there's a resource out there. And, it's not the first mock trial book. It might not even be the best mock trial book. I don't know. You might prefer another one. But here's what I can promise you about it is it's the simplest one to understand. You know, if you're just starting out in mock trial and you pick up my book and you read it through, you might still have some questions and say, I don't know about that. But you're going to feel a lot more prepared than you were when you started. I can guarantee you of that. And what I mentioned earlier about cookies on the bottom shelf, that idea with expert witnesses, that's what this book is. It's breaking everything down to its simplest term. It's also one of the most affordable books on the market. You know, a lot of mock trial books, if you want to get really really nerdy about it, are published by the same kind of companies that publish college textbooks. College textbooks are very, very expensive. We're talking over $100 for a book. Mine's not like that. My book is made and sold the same way as the books you buy at Barnes and Noble. And so you're going to get it for less than $20 like you would, you know, the new Hunger Games book or whatever. So it's affordable. It's very, very approachable. And kind of the reason for writing it was just to have a resource out there. I mean, I use it. I give my new students a copy. You know, it's one less lecture I have to give. If I can just hand them the book, or if they say, hey, you know, whatever, you know, I can email them a PDF of that chapter. But what's also happened is students all over the country have used it to get better too, and it's been so cool to see that. It's really something that I wish I had when I started mock trial.
So if someone wants to buy this book, where can they find it?
Good old Amazon. That's the easiest way to do it. Just go to Amazon, search my name, search Mock Trial Masterclass. It'll pop right up. I do a discount for teachers or coaches who want to buy in bulk. You can send me an email about that at luke@mocktrialmasterclass.com. We can talk about that. But yeah, just where, you know, the same way you'd buy any other book, go to Amazon.
I love Amazon, and I love that it's not like having to jump through a bunch of hoops to get like the book. I feel like that's kind of the case for other mock trial books out there.
It's easy peasy. And, you know, it's been really, really cool to hear the feedback over the last 3 years that it's been out, and just excited for it to keep impacting more teams, more students, and seeing what happens from there.
Well, I think that wraps up this episode of Mock Talk. Thank you so much, Mr. Luke, for coming on and sharing your knowledge for all the beginners out there and even some veterans who are watching this video.
Hey, it was great fun. Good luck, everybody. It's going to be a great season. I know I'm super excited to get back to work with my team in a few months. If you're in college, you've already started at this point. So best of luck, and hope everything goes well for you guys.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Mock Talk, your destination for all things mock trial. Keep mocking, and I'll see you next time.